Hey guys! Hey friends, it's Kale Lawrence, and today for Tea Time with Kale, let us conveniently forget that I do not have tea once again. I'm pretty sure that my past self is probably beating up my present self right now because why would I call this show Tea Time with Kale? Let's just say whenever I conveniently forget to have tea or I'm too lazy to get up and make myself some, I invite you to sit down with me, watch this video, and have some tea as we talk about writing topics. Today we are talking about drafting and what it means to write your story and your work over and over and over again until you have a polished gem. Unfortunately, drafting is really a part of the writing process. You can't get away from it. It's not going to be perfect the first time,
no matter how much we want it to be.
As a matter of fact, my first draft of the Magi Menagerie is disgusting. It should have never been read by any human eyes, but that's the thing. No one can make a beautiful work of art on the first try. There's a quote out there that I've seen many times on Instagram where basically it says, the first draft is really you telling yourself the story. So needless to say, writing is an ever-evolving craft. The first try is not going to be your best. Please accept that fact right now. Coming from an author, coming from a professional marketer, coming from a genuine human being, it is impossible to create a beautiful work of art the first time. In fact, I personally, and this is just my personal opinion, but I personally think that it would take 5 drafts to get your story 100% how you want it. 5 drafts? Yes, 5 drafts. I just want to show you how a 5 draft approach can really help your writing. Draft number 1, get your thoughts on paper. This is not going to be a perfect telling of what you want. You have a story brewing in your head. Great, that's step number 1. But for draft number 1, focus on really telling yourself the story. What is going on? Who are the characters? Have your characters introduce themselves to you. This is where you are playing with the possibilities. I know a lot of writers have a really hard time with their first drafts because they're putting so much pressure on themselves to do great and wondrous things. Well, you can do great and wondrous things, but it's going to take time and it's going to take refinement. Here's an example. I really love crystals. When my book comes out, you will understand my obsession with crystals. But you're not going to get a really beautiful stone like this straight out of the ground. I mean, maybe you might get lucky. Realistically though, a lot of gemstones kind of look like this before you crack them open and see that there is a little bit of possibility shining out right there. So think of this as your story. The first one is gonna be rough. I mean, when you pull it out of your head, it's gonna be rough, it's gonna be dirty, it's gonna be revolting. But draft upon draft upon draft, you're gonna start to see this getting more polished, more refined, beautiful and brilliant and wonderful. And that's really what you're trying to get to, is that final polished draft. Sometimes during my first draft, I can't think of words. What I do is I end up putting placeholders in my text. I'll use a bracket and sometimes I'll bold it and say new word here or explain this here. And that way I know that I can keep writing. I can always come back and revisit the stuff that was really tripping me up. Draft 2. This is the draft where you refine your timeline and the story structure. So one of the issues that I had in my first draft was the timeline. Events were too far apart in the story, or you really didn't have that sense of time. Is this happening over the span of months or weeks or days? Are your story's events following a natural flow through the narrative? This draft is really where you can solidify that. It might seem like a minor thing, but honestly, like, I tripped up hard here. I had things happening and maybe several weeks would go by and something would happen, but it just didn't make sense because WTF, why are the characters sitting around doing nothing? The second draft was really my time to clean that up and figure out the story structure. Also, this is where you can fix your pacing too. So are certain parts way too slow? Are certain parts way too fast? You can really strike a chord in this draft. Draft 3, work on your character's goals and voice. Again, I feel really hard on this one as well. It wasn't until draft 4 that I really started cleaning this up, but my recommendation is that your draft 3 really focus on your character's goals, what's driving them, what makes them tick, flesh out the antagonists a little bit more. I know that can really make or break a story. So draft 3 is really your chance to evaluate your cast. Also, another thing to consider is, do your characters sound natural? Do they sound different from one another, or do they all sound the same? Draft 4, clean up your voice. So, what do I mean by cleaning up your own voice? You have a dirty voice. Ow! And it needs to be cleaned. No, I'm just kidding. Draft 4 is really where you can remove unnecessary phrases, really clean up those conversations, that dialogue, truncate really clunky sentences. One of my best tips here is to read this out loud, or one thing I really like to do as I'm going through is I like to hear my work being read out loud to me. So sometimes I will actually review my work by using apps, and I can't remember the app right off the top of my head, but I'm going to put it right here. That app is a really good option. There are some free voices you can use. You can also do premium voices. It's kind of cool listening to the premium voices. But honestly, what I do is I use the Word app on my iPhone, and I have it do the read aloud feature, and it really helps, especially catch maybe little words that I missed, like I missed an A there or a the there. Hearing it read back to you is amazing. I recommend it to everyone. You should never let your book go to print unless you've heard it read out loud. And these options are free, these options are accessible, and I highly recommend them. Draft 4 is also where you can really evaluate how your storytelling will be perceived by a reader. And also, this is the draft where I kill my darlings. If you haven't heard that term, that's just a way of saying getting rid of unnecessary parts of your story, whether that be a character, whether that be a scene, whether that be the whole book. Just kidding. Draft 5 is the final polish. This is where you go through and you check your spelling, your grammar, your sentence structures, make sure that it doesn't sound repetitive. It's just putting that final polish on that gem. This is also the draft that you should be putting in front of other readers, whether that be beta readers, your editor. Moral of the story is, it's going to take multiple drafts to get where you want to be. And that's okay, because some of the best things come out of the later drafts. So whether you write 2 drafts or 5 drafts or 10 drafts, there's really no right answer here. I'm gonna leave you folks with the challenge as I point so threateningly with my crystal. If you want somebody to give you some great feedback, actually send me a DM. I love commenting on people's writing, not in a bad way. I'm not like,
I see you're not using the Oxford comma. I don't think we can be friends.
I truthfully love to give really good constructive feedback. So if you have a story you want me to take a look at, or just even a paragraph, DM it. Have a good day, put on a smile, know someone loves you, and I'll catch you here on Instagram really soon.